speculation anyways. No, it's not. It's
I don't know.
pretty tough.
All right, awesome. We'll call the meeting to order. We can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we can have the roll call.
Yoder,
Here.
Newman,
Here.
Black,
Here.
Hubble, Lautner,
Present?
Carlson,
Present.
Miller,
Here.
Nixon,
Here.
Trumbull.
Here.
Awesome. Great to have about everybody here. That's awesome. Next up, we have the consideration of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda for us that anybody would like? If not, I will take a motion.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, motion's been made by Mr. Noonan, supported by Mrs. Carlson to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next up, we have conflict of interest. Does any member on the commission here have a conflict with items on the agenda here? All right, I'm assuming not. Next up, we have public comment, which you have none. Staff comments?
Steve, you asked for agenda packet, and you still have one.
Oh,
Do
you have one?
want it?
I'm fine. Yep.
Okay, anyone else you want to follow along?
If you have an extra, you can pass it down.
Okay.
Sometimes it's easier than.
Just real quickly, the Michigan Association of Planning Conference will be next month, so Gail and I will be attending that on Mackinac Island. Hope the weather's decent. Don't want a rough boat ride over there in October. Already done that. And then we'll give you a report back at your next Planning Commission meeting. And this morning, I also had a Zoom call with Zach Hilliger, who is the new hire at Housing North, and be covering Leelanau County. And he will be at the Housing Summit in Traverse City for anybody who's attending there, but he's also interested in maybe attending one of your meetings in the future, especially if there's something about housing on the agenda for him to learn about and to introduce himself.
Awesome. All right, that it? Excellent. Any questions for staff? All right, not, we got, move on to the consideration of our July meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman?
Mm-hmm.
I want to apologize. I forgot to call in. It was my 6-month checkup at U of M, and I don't get to pick the date. They tell me what day I will be there, and it was this day, so I just missed the meeting.
All right,
I move we approve the minutes as presented for the July 26th meeting.
Support.
all right. Motion been made by Mr. Nixon, supported by Mr. Black to approve the July 26th meeting minutes. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, next up, we have new business, Casson Township text amendment, public facilities and government buildings. We can move to the staff for their report on that.
This is a request from Casson Township that we received on August 17th. The last day of review, as you'll see, is September 16th. The township did agree to wait until tonight for the review. The requested action is to review and comment on proposed amendments to the Casson Township zoning ordinance, section 4.5, agricultural district. Moving down, the township plan, the Casson Township master plan does not specifically address this amendment, and neither does the Leelanau general plan. The township held a public hearing on May 16th, at which time no public comments were received. they passed a motion unanimously to forward the amendment here to the County Planning Commission for review, given that there are no changes and upon council's recommendation. And when we made a staff note that the draft minutes of the July 18th meeting indicate that comments from the township's attorney were received at that time. Moving down to the analysis, is the proposed text compatible with other language in the zoning ordinance? Yes. Do the land uses or other related dimensional standards in the proposed text amendment conflict with the existing zoning ordinance? No. Does the proposed text amendment include any issues of greater than local concern? No. Do the contents in the proposed text amendment conflict with the community's plan? No, they don't. And do the contents in the proposed text amendment conflict with the general plan? No, they don't. Moving down to the history, township minutes from March 21st indicate there are potential projects in the township that would involve changes to the municipal structures, and the township is looking for a path so that these projects may be completed as necessary in the future. But no projects are pending immediate approval. The motion passed at the May 16th public hearing included a review by the township's legal counsel before sending the amendment to the county for review. The draft minutes of July 18th indicate the township's legal counsel recommended tweaking some of the language and that another public hearing was not needed before sending the amendment to the county for review. Moving down to staff comments, the proposed amendment will add the following to section 4.5 agricultural district, section 4.5.2 special land uses, and section 4.7 forested district, section 4.7.2 special land use. Public facilities including fire stations, community meeting halls, parking lots, cemeteries, parks, schools, libraries, and other structures associated with public entities, including enclosures or shelters for service equipment and maintenance depots. And then we show the current section 4.8 high-density village, section 4.8.1, show you the permitted uses, how that reads. The proposed amendment will change that section to read as follows. B, public and semi-public uses, including community meeting halls, public or private schools, athletic clubs, museums, libraries, parks and playgrounds, and structures or parking lots typically constructed as part of these types of facilities, including enclosures or shelters for service equipment and maintenance depots, are allowed in both mixed-use commercial core and medium and small lot subdistricts. And C, fire stations, including enclosures or shelters for service equipment and related parking lots, are allowed in all subdistricts. The proposed amendment will also change section 4.9.1 permitted uses to read as follows. Public and semi-public uses, including community meeting halls, public or private schools, athletic clubs, museums, libraries, fire stations, parks and playgrounds and structures or parking lots typically constructed as part of these types of facilities, including enclosures or shelters for service equipment and maintenance depots. In section 5.8, essential services, will be replaced with the following. Section 5.8, essential services and government buildings. Section 5.8.1, essential services means the erection, construction, alteration, or maintenance by public utilities or municipal departments of underground, surface, or overhead gas, electrical, steam, fuel, or water transmission or distribution system, collection, communication, supply, or disposal system, including towers, poles, wires, mains, drains, sewers, pipes, conduits, cables, fire alarm, and police call boxes, traffic signals, hydrants, and similar equipment in connection herewith, but not including buildings which are necessary for the furnishing of adequate service by such facilities, or government departments for the general health, safety, and welfare. Radio broadcasting and receiving towers and equipment structures used in cellular telephone systems are specifically excluded from the definition of essential services. Buildings accessory to such services, however, require a special use permit and are subject to the requirements set forth in Chapter 7 and Chapter 8 and all other aspects of this ordinance, including the development standards of the zoning district in which they are located. The proposed amendment would open up the listed districts to these uses. The majority of the township property is zoned for either agricultural or forested, so that is a lot of land in the township where these uses would now be allowed, subject to special land use requirements. Staff questions whether the proposed amendment is adding the bullet point or replacing the existing text with a new bullet point in section 4.5 agricultural district, section 4.5.2 special land uses, and section 4.7 forested district, section 4.7.2 special land use. If this bullet point is being added, some of the uses mentioned are already listed separately. Staff also has the same question regarding section 4.8 high density village and section 4.8.1 permitted uses. The township approached the county about purchasing a portion of Miles Kimberly Park on the north side of County Road 616 for a new fire station. The County Parks and Recreation Committee made a recommendation to the county board, and earlier this month, the county board denied the request from the township to purchase a portion of the Miles Kimberly Park for a fire station. If another fire station is needed in the future, this amendment would allow such a use to be located nearly anywhere in the township, subject to the zoning ordinance requirements. Some other townships have a separate government or municipal center district in their zoning ordinance, while others list some of these uses proposed by the amendment as allowed in all districts, subject to site plan and/or special land use approval. And then lastly, staff notes, for all public hearings, the public hearing should be opened, public comment taken, and then the public hearing is closed before any action is taken. Public comment should be captured during the hearing, and then when it is closed, discussion and any action taken by the members is recorded.
All right, I guess we'll move on to commission comments. Ms. Trumbull, do you have anything to add to that?
I do
Any
not.
other questions?
No, I do not.
All right, Mr. Black?
I don't have any real questions. I do like the comment near the end of denying them their buying the parkland for a fire station. And there's a lot of other places they could put it. I think that was good.
All right, Commissioner Lauder?
Actually, this may have been written between our executive and our regular board meeting perhaps, because we actually made we took it off the agenda for Tuesday night because Casson Township and Cleveland Township have not yet had the ability to make a PowerPoint presentation to the full board. They've been to the Parks and Recreation, but not to the full board. Excuse me. So it really officially has not been denied at this time. So they will get that opportunity. But I do have a question on, and maybe I'm just not understanding this, perhaps Rudy, you can help me through it, but some of these are, uses are already allowed use in agricultural land, is that correct? Such as schools? I guess that's maybe my first question. By state law, is that correct?
Are you referring to the comments made that, about the bullet point? That if they're adding this as a bullet point, there are already some of the uses that are.
Well, this is what I
currently
want to make sure I understand. Are they trying to make it like, so that now if someone had a piece of agricultural land and somebody wanted to purchase it to put a school, and churches aren't mentioned, I mean, that's another allowable use, golf courses, et cetera, would that now have to be done with a special use permit? Is that what they're doing, or are they taking a layer off? I just guess I didn't understand exactly what they want to do because it's a special use now.
Well, the
you understand?
proposed amendment is changing section 4.91 permitted uses with that definition. I can't tell what page it is in your packet. It's on page 3 of the actual staff report. And that definition includes public or private schools. I don't see churches mentioned there.
they don't mention, but they're by, I thought it was by state law that those were allowed uses on agriculture. But maybe,
Are you talking about religious uses?
no, schools, churches, golf courses, those are just allowed, I thought it would, they're just allowed by right on ag land.
I'm
It says
not-
schools, churches, and.
I'm-
I think golf courses.
That was my understanding as well, going through our zoning ordinance in Solon Township, that, yeah, any government buildings, schools, churches, doesn't have to be a specific area where they are designated to go. They can pretty much, because it's a government type of exemption type of thing, they can pretty much go anywhere, from my understanding. I
So-
could be wrong, but that was my understanding when we went through our zoning ordinance, when we had to review that, everything. Because we were changing in our zoning ordinance, but based on, taking them out from a use by right type of thing, and so they don't have to require them to go through a public hearing. And my discussion was, why are we requiring them to go through a public hearing if they are legally allowed to be there anyway? So my understanding was that, because I was in essence opposed to it in my township, why force them to go through that protocol if they're allowed to be there anyway, And it was simply just to alert the public, I guess, so that was my understanding, that they can pretty much, there's not a designation where they can or cannot go, but I could be wrong on that.
That is something that we've talked about at some of the planning trainings that we've had, is why have a public hearing on something that is allowed, because you're giving the perception to the public that they're going to have an impact
Right.
by
Right.
coming to this public hearing
Right.
and speaking and so forth. And then others felt like, but it's still a it's still a good thing to let the public speak their mind, which the argument on that is, well, that's what public comment is for at meetings.
Right.
Rather than holding the public hearing and getting people's hopes up thinking we're gonna change something that is already allowed.
In the next question then is if I'm correct, and I should have looked into it more, I've just been so busy, but I think a township doesn't have to necessarily follow, I know county doesn't have to follow local zoning. I don't think a township has to follow local zoning either, correct? So why would they lock
No, they do.
themselves? They do?
Yeah, no, they do.
They do.
Yeah, even if on township property, you still have to abide by setbacks and different stuff like that, I believe. But I think what you're referring to there, by essential services in government buildings, there on the bottom, it says buildings accessory to such services, however, require a special use permit. So if I read it as anything other than that, still requires a special use permit. That's how I read it, but maybe I'm wrong in that, I don't know.
I agree with that.
Do you think it's anything beyond what's allowable is what they're saying would require a special use?
Anything
But is this
beyond
not-
what's stated in there has to go through a special land use permit. Or
But that
special,
would be churches
permit.
and those are allowable anywhere already. So I don't know, I guess I'm not understanding.
I mean,
it.
from my understanding, they're just trying to cover their bases to be able to put a fire station basically anywhere so that they can,
That's my understanding, from looking at a few of their township board meetings for a different reason, but listening to some of the conversation, and then the March 21st minutes mentioned potential projects. I don't know what other potential projects there were. They have been looking for a site for possible new fire department. So opening this district up, or districts, the way they're doing here, allows them that ability to look for some of the property that could possibly work for such a site.
But if they don't need a special zoning, and they don't need a special use, because they can go basically anywhere as long as they're complying with setbacks and such, then
Well, they've got input from their attorney, which was listed in the minutes. We didn't see what that was. They did tweak it some, so their attorney has reviewed this.
I wonder if it shouldn't be sent back to them and ask that they review whether they really even need to do it. Because doing something, if they don't need to write an ordinance that permits the use, then they've sent a message that just, the same way we're all kind of confused as to their intent, the general public is going to be at least as confused.
Well, I would agree. I think borrowing off of what Steve said, regardless of what they would construct on any site, they would have to abide by the zoning ordinance itself. And so setbacks, lighting, buffering, driveways, accessibility, all those factors would have to be still abided by through the.
There's no question about that, but they don't where they put the building, in what zone is it regulated. It's what they put there and how they construct it that is, how they configure it.
True.
And you don't need a special inclusion of these functions to be in the zoning ordinance because they're already covered.
All right, so is your question answered or?
Not totally, not totally, I just,
So in essence, you want in the minutes, I guess, just a question or clarification, I guess, to ensure that your concerns are,
yeah, I just would like a clarification on that. If these things now require a special use permit, I guess I would like to know why they would, do that. But I do have a question of whether townships have to follow local zoning for their own facilities.
I'm pretty positive, but
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
I
as
don't
far
know
as
for sure.
setbacks and different stuff like that, I'm pretty
Yeah.
positive on that, but I don't dare speak on it or,
Right,
No, I would agree with you.
you
but the
know.
county
agree.
does not.
The county,
The county does not have to follow local zoning. So that's what would surprise me, that a township actually would have to follow local zoning. And if that were the case, then they wouldn't want to put, have their things fall under a special use permit. They would never get anything built, correct? Ever, anywhere. So but I guess I'll just hold my comments because I just wouldn't want to, I don't want to.
So you're saying any county facility doesn't have to follow zoning as far as setbacks and all that stuff goes?
I think as far as, I don't know about setbacks, but as far as zoning goes, so, for example, this very campus didn't fit zoning. We overrode the townships and said, nope, we're putting our county campus right here.
Okay, yeah,
So-
and
so
townships in essence can do the same thing too, because it's a
Okay.
government entity, but they still have to follow the regulations in the jurisdiction and as far as setbacks and different stuff like that
Yeah,
goes.
setbacks and things like that, yes.
And they
Yeah, I
still
get
have
that.
Parking requirements and stuff.
Right.
Yep.
I understand.
I don't know, and I don't know how many of those they have to follow. So does this mean they now would have to, before they did anything, would they then have to follow a special use permit to do that? Or are they saying, no special use permit is necessary for these? And I don't know why some things are excluded and others are not, such as churches and golf courses, if those are, because they're kind of the same category, but they're left out. So I just was wondering about that too.
All right.
They're not mentioning churches.
Well, that's a question that'll be in the minutes to
Okay.
back to them, I guess, so.
Big question mark, that's
All
all.
right, Mr. Nixon?
I don't have any other comments, no.
All right, Mr. Noonan?
Nothing else.
Mr. Miller?
No, nothing in addition.
All right, Mrs. Carlson?
None further.
All right. Well, I guess, the minutes clarify enough what was discussed or not? Are you okay with that, staff, or
We're gonna send it back to the township with all the questions.
the comments and,
that we have to take into consideration.
all right? Yeah, because very likely it's something that we're not understanding here properly or something, so.
Probably,
um,
probably.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
to beg on the question, could we ask staff to affirm or deny whether the county has to follow local township zoning?
Oh, we have that in
The
an
county
opinion.
does not have to. We went through that years ago. We had a lawsuit going in Leelanau, which was dropped at the 11th hour, and then another township, Pittsfield Charter Township, downstate picked up everything that we had done, and because they were in a similar lawsuit, so they're providing a public service with their buildings just as we were doing, and it was ruled in their favor that they did not have to follow local zoning.
Well, I remember vaguely the consternation that developed around this site in my township. And I remember being told, I was my first year on the planning commission, that the county can put that anywhere they want, and we don't have any authority to deny it. But I don't remember the questions about having the county abide by our zoning ordinance in terms of buffering and setback and lighting and those things.
As I remember, we worked with the township on those other issues.
We did work with the township on those other issues. But whether we had to or not is a question I don't remember. I do know we had to get a wetlands permit. That was a
Yes.
state thing. We had to get that. So, I think it would just be useful information. Maybe we should review that. Because I'm curious now about townships.
Yeah.
Thank you for your answer, by the
We'll
way.
get more information and share with everyone. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. All right, if there's no further comments or questions, I'll take a motion to forward this back to Casson Township.
I'll move.
All right,
Support.
all right, Mr. Miller did. Motion was made by Mr. Noonan to forward Casson Township text amendment, public facilities and government buildings back to Casson Township Board with support from Mr. Miller. Any further discussion? All right, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, next up, item 2, Elmwood Township rezoning R1 to NC. Anyone with staff report on that?
Okay, this is a request that came to you September 8th. We have until October 8th, a 30-day review period under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. You are reviewing and commenting on a rezoning request for Lot 18 Briarwood subdivision, Lot 19 Briarwood subdivision number 2, and also a parcel that is approximately .39 acres abutting said lots from residential 1 district to the neighborhood commercial. The owners are James and Melissa Hill. They live just 5 lots north of these parcels in Briarwood. And we've included the tax parcel numbers here and noted that one of the parcels sits on East Grandview Road and it's west of the general commercial zoning. You had a copy of the application in the appendix, and we've noted that there, 2 of the parcels, the ones that are in the subdivision, are vacant. They're being used for boat storage. And then the one on Grandview has a structure shop on it, and that's also being used for boat storage. In the middle of the page there, you have the land use and the zoning that is spelled out. To the south, the vacant property is property that is owned by the township, so it's south of Grandview Road. To the east, you have some townhomes, and then there's also some vacant properties in the area. Zoning history on this is Mr. Hill submitted his application to rezone the property consisting of the 3 parcels so he could expand his indoor-outdoor boat and trailer storage. It was noted in the packet for the Elmwood Township Planning Commission meeting in July 19th that the request was for 3 parcels, as we've noted. They held a public hearing on August 16th. There were no public comments made at the time. However, it was noted in the minutes that there was a complaint received from adjacent property owner. And in the minutes, you'll note that there was also a written complaint to the zoning administrator that this was in violation of their ordinance. Elmwood Township Master Plan spells out high-density residential for both of these lots, and the third parcel is part of the Graylickville Service Center. And then the Leelanau General Plan, Chapter 12, talks about such things as the type, amount, and location of commercial and industrial development and service districts. So the township held their public hearing on August 16th and passed a motion to recommend the map amendment, and then they sent it on to us. We've noted under staff analysis and findings that the rezoning would be consistent with commercial zoning district and land uses to the south of the property, as well as development to the south and the east of the properties. The existing uses in the existing zone are reasonable, and the applicant does have the right to build any of those uses in the existing district. The township, when they reviewed this, did a findings of fact for the planning commission, and they had that in their motion to recommend the property be rezoned. We've listed the uses permitted by right in the residential district 1. They include single-family dwelling, adult foster care family home, family child care homes, bed and breakfast, foster family group home, wind energy conversion system, a non-commercial system, livestock and poultry on 4 or more acres in a fenced enclosure, which would not work here, and short-term rentals. And then in the neighborhood commercial, the uses permitted by special use are planned developments, cluster residential developments, group child care home, kennels, which probably would also not work here. Seasonal outdoor storage of boats and recreational vehicles and veterinary clinics. And then we've noted the minimum size that's needed here. Then we've pointed out there's a use that's been going on here, this boat storage, for quite some time, and it appears from the minutes that there was also a commercial use prior to that, which might have been a former well driller operation, and it predates the zoning ordinance. Information that was provided by the township indicates an undetermined portion of the property had been used for storage of boats predating that zoning. The owner now wishes to expand that use. And per the zoning ordinance, a pre-existing non-conforming use cannot be expanded. So while there's 2 lots in the subdivision that are north of this property that are currently vacant, at some point, with it being in a subdivision being residential use, you would expect that those would be developed into residential homes. So if this is rezoned, they would be right next to the boat storage now. We did check with the Register of Deeds office, because this is a subdivision, actually 2 subdivisions, to see if there was any recorded subdivision restrictions that would prohibit the use of commercial on the subdivision lots, and we did not find any recorded restrictions in the Register of Deeds office. It is odd for lots in a subdivision to be rezoned to a commercial district because they're established for residential use, not something you normally see. 2 parcels along East Grandview Road to the east of this were rezoned in 2016 from R1 to NC, and they are now the Grandview townhomes. Also, just something to point out, in the document from the applicant, they state that they've been assessed as commercial use. We looked this up with the Equalization Department. They're showing them being assessed as 401, which is residential improved, and 402, which is residential vacant. So we're not showing that they were assessed as commercial. And commercial use assessed, classified by an assessor is different than a commercial zoning district. So as an example, you could have a property assessed as residential property, but it's not actually on residential zone property. It could be in the agricultural district. There are plenty of those examples around the county where the use is residential, but the zoning district is not. And it's important when reviewing these rezoning requests to look at the current uses, the uses allowed in the proposed district, the master plan, and the surrounding uses in zoning districts. And finally, we've stated that the applicant gave the background related to this parcel in the surrounding area. The Township Planning Commission appeared to do a thorough job of reviewing the request and doing their findings of fact before they made their recommendation, and now it needs to be reviewed by the Township Board to determine if they're going to rezone these 3 parcels or not. And of course, with any rezoning or amendment to zoning ordinance, it's final with the Township Board action unless it's petitioned to go to a referendum. And if that is successfully done, then it's up to a vote of the voters in that district.
All right. We'll move on to commission comments. Mrs. Carlson? Nothing? Mr. Miller?
The fact that it's been used that way for so many years, seems to make a change.
All right. Mr. Noonan?
Nothing further.
Mr. Nixon?
It would seem by their action, they need to revisit their master plan, because it doesn't indicate those lots are high-density residential, and that's I think that's quite a leap. But as Bob mentions, I think it's been a long standing that that's been used as a quasi-commercial or in fact a commercial area. But if the master plan calls for the future for that to be high-density residential, they should revisit that. I was pleased to see that staff had visited the Register of Deeds office. That was a question I had when I started to read this. I wonder if that's really got any impact, since it is a subdivision and not a planned unit development. And thank you for doing that review.
And, you know, it's possible we could have missed something because these are old. We did try to find something on there, but.
Had this been in a PUD, would there not been any choice? Could they have still done this if it had been a planned unit development in difference to a?
I would still want to look at those subdivision regulations, if there were any. Usually there are some restrictions, as, you
Yeah.
know, you can have one pet, you can, your garage may have to be attached, or something like that. There's usually regulations that are spelled out, or that you can only have one single-family home on a property, but we didn't find anything that was recorded for these.
It's good. Okay. Those are my comments.
Commissioner Wallner?
I really don't have any comments, except I guess that since it's already in existence, would an expansion really be that much of a hardship for the neighbors? Especially if it could be high-density housing, boat storage isn't really a bad neighbor, but that's between the neighbors. But I do have a question of, is this new language then that they would have special use permit for the planned developments of cluster residential developments, group childcare homes? Is that a new for them in this?
I don't have the full report in front of me, so what section are you referring to?
Oh, I was
Linda?
looking at your page 7, or our page 70. So I was wondering what the group child care home, is that a daycare?
No, I don't believe so. I
No.
was gonna comment on that, so.
You think it's more of a, what is it?
So that part's actually not being changed.
It's not being changed?
No,
Okay.
that's part of
That
their
was my
ordinance
question.
already. That's just showing you, those are the uses allowed if it's rezoned to NC.
Okay, all right,
All right.
that's it. I don't have any comments.
Mr. Black?
Frankly, I'm kind of surprised in reading this. I was reading it earlier at home, and having ridden my bike through there so many times, the growth of the commercial district down in that area, I don't frankly see why somebody would want to build a home in there. Even those condos, your bicycle goes right around, you're within 20 feet of the buildings. I can't imagine why somebody would want a home there with almost no backyard and commercial continuing to expand in the whole area through there. I think, like it was said earlier, I think the master plan needed to be addressed and does need to be addressed. And why this is still a non-conforming use after this many years of being there, that makes no sense to me. Why that wasn't addressed sooner, and it needs to be addressed.
All right, Mrs. Trumbull?
Nothing.
All right. Any other questions or comments before we forward it on? All right. If not, I'll take a motion to forward this on to, or back to the Elmwood Township Board.
So moved.
Support.
All right, motion's been made by Mr. Nixon, supported by Mr. Black, to forward the Elmwood Township rezoning R1 to NC, back to the Elmwood Township Board. Any further discussion? All right, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, next up, we're back to Casson Township, text amendment, mixed uses. Staff?
This request was received September 16th. The last day to review is October 16th, under the 30-day review period. The action is to review and comment on the proposed amendments to the Casson Township zoning ordinance, section 4.9.2A. The Casson Township Master Plan, page 27, states commercial land uses anticipated and desired by the township residents include office, professional, retail, and restaurant establishments. Currently, small-scale business activity is scattered throughout the township with a small congregation of business and public facilities centered in the village of Maple City. The Leelanau General Plan does not specifically address this amendment. A public hearing was held on August 15th, and during the public hearing, the Township Planning Commission unanimously passed a motion to adopt this new definition and add mixed use to section 4.9.2 of the zoning ordinance. Moving down to the analysis, is the proposed text compatible with other language in the zoning ordinance? Yes. Are there any issues with the proposed text? see staff comments for that. Does the proposed text amendment include any issues of greater than local concern? No, it does not. Do the contents in the proposed text amendment conflict with the community's plan? No. Do the contents in the proposed text amendment conflict with the general plan? No, they don't. Moving down to the history. Jennifer and Mark Patterson submitted an application to amend the zoning ordinance to add a definition of mixed use and insert mixed use to the commercial district as a special use. The Pattersons own property located on West Empire Highway and want to have a home-based business at this location. The draft minutes from August 15 indicate a lot of discussion regarding the definition of a home occupation and mixed use. Moving down to staff comments. The proposed amendment will add the following definition to section 2.2 definitions. Mixed land use means the multiple use of land is allowed to coexist. This covers two distinct forms of mixed land use vis-a-vis commercial mix, areas where residential, commercial, and some other uses, except polluting industry, may coexist within a single building. And the proposed amendment will also add mixed use to section 4.9.2 special land uses. Staff questions the word polluting in the definition. What would be considered a polluting industry? Who makes this determination? The township, the zoning administrator, the citizens? And staff was able to find one other township, the Glen Arbor Township, and their zoning ordinance has a definition for mixed use. And it is a balance of commercial and residential uses contributing to a development success as well as supporting the local economy. Typically, this is a multi-story building with retail, service, or office space on the ground floor and residents above. And then finally, we've made that staff note again regarding public hearings.
I
So,
road from my house, but I don't know which house it is.
Casson Township, most of their commercial use is along 667 and 72, right on the corner there. And then over on Empire Highway, where this red barn is located.
No, is this
Is
the,
that
And
what
then
it
right
is
down-
the red barn? That's what I thought.
is it the old bed and breakfast at Noonan's?
Yes, that's.
It's the red barn though, right? Not the bed and breakfast, because those are two separate
They're
parcels.
two separate parcels now,
Yeah.
right, so it's a red barn portion of, okay, yep, okay.
There's several properties there that are in their commercial district on the north side and south side.
Right.
of
Okay.
72.
Yep,
Yeah, because you've got the boat storage and Frank Sipker's storage units and, I think the backyard Burdickville falls into that too. Or the old Eagles Club.
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Lively's place.
Yeah.
And then the other group of commercial is right downtown.
Still Point Market, it says, in the bed and breakfast.
All right, is that it for staff report?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. All right, move on to commission comments. Ms. Trumbull?
I have none.
All right, Mr. Black?
We don't have any.
Commissioner Lautner?
Nope.
Mr. Nixon?
Nothing?
Mr. Noonan?
Nothing further.
Mr. Miller?
Only the fact that there, right now, I can't even find any reference to upper floor being residential and lower being commercial use. I don't know that the zoning ordinance should be quite that specific. I mean, if we wanted it front and back instead of up and down, it's not a zoning question. It shouldn't be a zoning question.
All right. Ms. Carlson? Nothing? All right, any other questions or comments? All right, if not, we'll take a motion to forward this on to the Casson Township. All right, Mr. Miller made the motion, Commissioner Lautner supported. Any further discussion? All All right, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, next up, we're to reports. Housing Action Committee, Commissioner Lautner.
I really have nothing to report. Trudy, do you have anything to report? Is there?
No, our next meeting is October 10th, and then the housing summit is, I don't know what dates, later in October.
27, 28.
Yes. they-
Okay.
All
And
right.
is that what you're talking about when I came in? Is there?
I had a Zoom session with Zach, who's the new hire for Housing North that will cover Leelanau County.
Gotcha,
So,
that's what that was. Okay,
We will be meeting him more formally in the near future.
okay. Great.
All right. Parks and Rec, Mr. Noonan.
Not a whole lot to report. The biggest thing that we've had going lately is this thing with the fire department, trying to get that squared away and get an answer. And Greg Julian we had kind of a couple month break there that nothing really happened. And I called Greg just to kind of wonder where things were at. And he said, well, it's kind of up to you guys. We're waiting for an answer. So that's why we created a motion out of the Parks and Rec to see what the will of that board was and then forward it on to the county board. So that's where it stands. I guess I thought it had gone through, that it wasn't, they had voted against it, but they're gonna wait and have the presentation. There's not a whole lot of support from the Parks and Rec board to sell parkland, which is, I guess is,
Understandable.
yeah, understandable, but there is some support for it. You know, I've had a pretty open mind to it. Popa was in favor of it. Some in favor, some not.
If I.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much how everybody, or most have been. It's like, you know, maybe right out of the chute and no, and then when they think about it, it's like there's facets of it that make a lot of sense. And some of their arguments are, and some of their arguments are, the location is ideal for fire and rescue because it's a 4-township fire department. Solon and Centerville right now have the only building, and that's in a really good spot for Solon because it's on the northern border of Solon and can easily cover with the north-south roads, Centerville and Solon. So you then look at Casson and Cleveland, so response times obviously are going to be slower up into Cleveland from Cedar. So they're saying we need something over there. But in that area, we've got the Maple Valley Nursing Home. We have the park across the road where any given Saturday, there's, 100 kids there playing soccer or t-ball or on the playground. So we have our old folks, we got our young folks, and right down the road is our school. So, you know, location-wise, it's got its north-south roads, it's got its east-west roads. It really does make a lot of sense. So, you know, the question will be, what they want to pitch is, could they be a good neighbor on the park with, I think they said 5 acres of the hayfield? And that's all. So we're going to allow them the opportunity to present to the full Board of Commissioners. That has the ultimate decision, even though at Parks we said, we're really not interested. But 20 years ago or thereabouts, when they put all of our parks in what we thought was perpetuity, they did leave that piece out because they said, you know, we never know what the future's going to bring. And if we ever were going to sell a piece of our park, that would be the most sense. That'd make the most sense. So they left that out of perpetuity. But now we found out that perpetuity is only as good as the term of the Board of Commissioners. So that perpetuity will pretty much stay until December 31st. And then the decision will have to be made again in January 1, I guess, to keep it in perpetuity, which will last for that term of the Board of Commissioners. That's a little bit more.
Yeah. It's been interesting, I mean, to see everybody's reaction. Some people are flat out no, some people were no maybe, some people were yes. And the article in the paper said that all of the neighbors were opposed to it, but that's not true. The neighbors that came and spoke were in opposition of it, but I have had several other phone calls saying that they're all for it, but they didn't come to the meeting. It's not really my deal to be, I'm only there to run the meeting, I'm not really there to field calls, but, it's been interesting, and we're actually going kind of through the same process and we haven't started it, but thoughts in Empire Township of a new fire station, and it's very interesting looking at, trying to purchase land and where to purchase it, and there's, very specific locations to locate the fire halls, and it's hard to find land in that exact location, so it's interesting. Not one way or the other.
And to find neighbors that say, yeah, I want a fire station.
Yeah,
next
and
to me.
I don't think you're ever gonna have a perfect world, but, it's been interesting. But that's been the excitement. There's a couple other small projects going on. We got the building torn down at Miles Kimmerly, the old grub shack there that was getting dilapidated, and got some new playground equipment at Old Settlers Park that looks really nice. And that's been about it.
All right, Commissioner Water?
The only thing else I'd add for Parks and Rec is Parks and Rec did send a request for basically $200,000 to go towards starting that 1 mile loop, the paved loop we would like to put in at Miles Kimmerly. And since that's 4 times our normal annual budget for parks, we've asked the Board of Commissioners to consider just gifting us the $200,000 to get that 1 mile loop built there at Miles Kimmerly Park, which has all kinds of support from older people who say, that'd be a great place, like, nice level walking, to young moms with kids that are like, that would be just great, the kids could rollerblade or skate, or I could push my stroller. And so anytime it's been on social media, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. So that was just tossed out there this week at a budget meeting, and too soon for any action. So that's where it's at.
All right. Any questions about Parks and Rec? All right. Not, we're on to reports from members at attendance at any event, meetings or trainings or whatever. I'll start with Mrs. Carlson. Nothing? Mr. Miller, Mr. Noonan?
One interesting thing at Empire Township Board meeting, we were approached by the Gateway to Sleeping Bear organization. There is and this pertains to the fire departments, there's a piece of national park land on Benzonia Trail that the park doesn't really want. So they came to us kind of out of the blue, wondering if we'd be interested in partnering, trying to get that land and possibly use part of it for a fire hall, but then also develop part of it for maybe some low income, or not, workforce housing, whatever you want to call it, maybe some, but more of a mixed housing with some apartments, some like camper pads or mini home pads, just kind of a collaboration, very, very preliminary, but an interesting concept that could be good for the whole community. Long ways to go. There's Senate bills and stuff that are in play right now, and we're, I don't even remember exactly how it all played out, but I think the Sleeping Bear Gateway people were going to contact all of our congressmen and let them know that we want it, or would be in support of getting it, or whatever. But it's something that they accumulated years ago from Pierce Stocking, and it's just been sitting there, and I actually never even realized that it was parkland. But it's vacant land that's kind of it's not in their plan to do anything with it. It's kind of an ideal location for the fire hall, but long ways to go.
When you say mini homes, do you mean tiny homes?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, that's kind of part of it, because their kind of approach, the way I kind of took it is like, get us this land, you can have 5 acres for your fire hall, and then we'll do or facilitate how to get the rest of this going. But the the focus was more for temporary workforce housing, more like I said, campers or mini home. Some of them tow that home around, I guess. I don't understand it all. But, they had a way better handle on needs and everything in the community than what I had. But interesting concept. They had a lot of really neat ideas. It was a really good conversation. It'd be really cool if it worked. It's just a lot of pieces and strings to put together.
All right, Mr. Nixon?
As long as we're talking about parks, our township is very active with parks. We're in the process, if you come into Suttons Bay, the township owns the property that the ice rink sits on, and so we're beginning to dedicate some dollars towards that, and we'll be constructing on top of a cement pad that was put in this week, ice shanty to store and allow people to kind of get out of the cold. At our last board meeting, we approved funding for additional pickleball courts. Organization that has been really a responsible group are wanting to build at no cost to the township an expansion of at least 2 more courts. And we also, after some lengthy discussions and several meetings, have approved a group of volunteers in the community to begin funding for a dog park. We're putting a dog park at Herman Park. And this last week, the By the Bay Garden Club, which are the people you probably see the flowers all over downtown Suttons Bay, the By the Bay Garden Club came to us several years ago wanting to construct a memorial, a Blue Star Memorial Garden at Herman Park, and that was completed, but because of COVID, they've never been able to dedicate it. So they just had a dedication this last week, which probably had close to 80 people there. If you go by Herman Park, I would invite you to stop in and look at this garden. It's really a very beautiful garden, with a walkway through it, bricks that have been a fundraiser for them, dedicated to war heroes, and they're still collecting money for that.
Nice.
The township's also going to start reviewing our short-term rental ordinance. It's been 5 years. We were one of the first in the county to start short-term rentals. We think it's time we revisit that ordinance and do some tweaking, at least re-examine some of the issues that are plaguing us a bit. And we're also scheduling a joint meeting, which is unusual for us, between our township board and our park and rec committee. We want to do that because we're on the brink of starting our 5-year plan, and we need to have board and input with the committee. Plus, we're also going to review responsibilities, roles, and activities with our park and rec committee, because we want to continue to work closely with that group, because that's a big thing our township seems to be dealing with, our parks. I don't know about the rest of you, but we in Suttons Bay realize we got a building that we take care of, and we got roads that we can improve, and we have a nice little cemetery that we're starting to put some effort into, but parks are a big part of our township. So it commands a lot of attention and time. That's enough.
You do have nice parks in Suttons Bay.
We do.
Will there is a distinction between short-term rental, tweaking of zoning within Suttons Bay Township and the village, right?
Yes. Yes.
So Suttons Bay Township won't be touching the village?
No, the village has their own short-term
Yeah.
rental. Yep. Yep. They're not bound by ours, nor are we theirs. And ours has been working pretty well, by the way.
All right, Commissioner Launer?
No, I don't think I have anything this time.
All right, Mr. Black?
A couple little things. The tower going from Glen Arbor up to Northport, how is that going along? I haven't heard much about it. Is the tower already under construction or what? I think
Which
Trudy,
tower?
you,
The new one here?
yeah. Not
We
here.
have-
Up by Northport.
We have one we're going to be constructing in Northport, but it's not being under construction yet. What did we just hear about?
But they were taking it from Glen Arbor to Northport. Am I right?
I don't
That's
know
what I
about
was
that.
reading here.
They're taking down one that's there, putting up another one there that's gonna be taller.
Okay.
We were trying to site one down on Alligator Hill, but we were not successful. We're in the process of building one here, though.
Yes.
And we're talking about raising the height of the one on Tower Road.
Okay.
So
I was curious because it does affect the use of your phones in certain areas. I mean, they basically have a lot of dead areas. It'd be nice to alleviate that problem.
I would agree with that 100%. And it's getting worse. We've actually had
Yes.
people saying that they've had actual dead times on their cell phones this summer.
Yeah,
Dead
I
times
know
in
when
this
I'm
town.
driving, when I'm gonna hit an area.
Not just black holes, like dead blocks of time,
Yes,
like
Yeah.
half hour with no service. It's,
gone.
so definitely we need more bandwidth up here.
But I was listening to Mr. Nixon in regards to the short-term rentals. That is, of course, something I'm relatively new to our county. 3 years, I've been here almost last week, 3 years, we moved up here from Muskegon. And I look at this county as a destination of visitors, vacation people. And I think short-term rentals are critical. I do realize they can be a headache if you had one next door to. I have one next door to me, no problem. I personally, they can be controlled, but you gotta, there's probably needs to be some restrictions, and I don't know all the answers. I just know that I use them every year when I go to Florida. And I think they do a phenomenal job with the rentals in Florida. They thrive with our money. They like it. They charge me enough, I know that, but I'm thankful they're there. It allows me to move around the state of Florida to different locations. And I think that it being a destination for vacationing people is critical that we address it. And come to a solution that's satisfactory to everybody, I guess, as many as possible.
All right, Mrs. Trumbull?
I have nothing to add.
All right. I will note that we're currently working on a little bit of our master plan in Solon Township, which you'll probably get some stuff here, especially a future land use map and things we're working on. We've had quite a few applicants come and propose some rezoning, so obviously didn't fit into our master plans, so we're working on that, so you'll probably be getting some of that in the next couple months, so hopefully not a couple years, but. So, yeah, next up, we have communications. Anything from staff on that? Nothing? Public comment? We have none. Staff comments? Any more?
Just as a follow-up to what you said, Steve, I wanted to update you on this because we haven't done this in quite a few years. In the past, staff has done what we call informal staff reports, or informal review, I should call it. And that is where community has asked us, hey, before we go too far down the road on this amendment or whatever we're working on, can you give us an informal review so we've got your comments and suggestions to see if we want to incorporate them. So I was asked by the Solon Township Zoning Administrator on the master plan maps because they were submitted to us, and I sent the checklist of what needs to be done before we can actually review it. And he asked if we do the informal review of the maps. So we haven't even started that yet. But we will, so the way that works is we do an informal review, we send it back for their consideration if they want, we let them know this is not the formal review. Once you're ready to submit it to the county, it still goes to the County Planning Commission for their review under either the Planning Act or the Zoning Act, whichever one we're reviewing. So at that point, what we do is look at it again and determine, if we need to change anything in our informal review because they've changed something, and then we complete staff report for you. So just wanted to let you know that would be something that we're working on.
All right. Any other questions for staff? All right. Next up, we have Commissioner and Chairperson comments. Mrs. Carlson?
South Shore Drive got paved over, it's nice.
Oh, nice. Mr. Miller? Mr. Noonan?
No comment.
Mr. Nixon?
Yeah, I think we should commend and support Trudy in her recent appointment
Yes.
on the board for the Michigan Association of Planners. I think that's quite an honor for you.
Yes.
No?
And Wish you well in that.
Thanks, I might need it.
You make us proud.
All right, Commissioner Lautner?
You're proud. Thank you for me.
Mr. Black? Ms. Trumbull? All right. And I have nothing on my end, but thanks staff for all their work on the meeting here, and wish everyone a happy fall. See you in a month.
Sounds good.
Meeting adjourned.
That's good.
Mel,